Hello, my name is Séamus O'Hanlon and this is the 3 o'clock news bulletin. Up to 500,000 public service workers are striking today, including over 300,000 teachers across England. TUC figures published today claim the average worker is over £200 a month worse off compared to 2010 once inflation has been taken into account. Today we'll be devoting our programme to the country's largest strike day in over a decade.
Welcome to our special edition of Keys News here at Peel Park.
Our main stories: as cost of living continues to bite, are Too Good To Go bags the silver bullet?
And Manchester gathers together in solidarity against the murder of a young woman in Iran.
An ambitious bill aimed at protecting children from vaping introduced today in Parliament.
And a closer look into the online safety bill.
Rishi Sunak has faced both criticism and unexpected praise for how he is settling this potentially historic deal.
The main objection is the unionists and some Conservatives still believe that Northern Ireland is being treated differently. And that in itself is a problem because Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. And as part of the United Kingdom, it shouldn't be treated differently in their view. It should be treated exactly the same as the rest of the mainland.
Now, the Prime Minister has boasted that his new Brexit deal puts Northern Ireland in an unbelievably special position because it will have access to both the UK and the EU markets. And he said that this makes it the world's most exciting economic zone.
This kind of compromise and concession maybe has to be made in reality. And their objection, therefore, remains the fact that Northern Ireland still appears to have connections to the EU that the rest of the United Kingdom doesn't have.
We did not expect, given the words that Rishi Sunak had used in the leadership campaign, we did not expect this level of pragmatism at this stage. It's the first time in a very long time that the United Kingdom and the EU have reached an agreement in which both can be quite honest and truthful with each other. And I think it is the trust that we lost under Boris Johnson and under Liz Truss that had caused such a souring of the relationship with our European neighbours.
I think there is the potential for this group of women to certainly be an important and key part of the electorate. We've often seen parties target men in election campaigns. So, for example, the Mondeo man, we've also seen the Workington man, and often midlife women are excluded from party campaigns.
You know, it's kind of shoehorning it into a particular area, which we don't think is satisfactory. Now, they're not even entertaining a review of it or to think about it. They just said point blank no. And it does deserve its own characteristic because every woman will go through it.
A number of workplaces are introducing menopause champions, and I think that really is in response to the fact that, again, a number of women, you know, don't like to admit to themselves that they are going through the menopause. It's a very uncomfortable topic for them. And if you have a male line manager or a female line manager who is younger than you, I can see that would be quite a difficult working relationship to start talking about very personal things.
I agree that it should be brought in, but it wouldn't make me vote for that party.
A lot of workplaces are run by men that don't really understand the repercussions of someone going through menopause, and it lasts years.
Changes that women go through menopause are very difficult, in some cases very extreme, which involves a full hysterectomy, i.e. myself.
Women historically have been more likely to vote Conservative than men, but this changed from 2017 onwards. And so this gap that we've seen has been predominantly driven by younger women, but by tapping into midlife women and older women, that key group of voters, there is a potential there for the Labour Party to further their success with women voters.
A cross-party group of MPs have called for an urgent ban on the use of electroconvulsive therapy. Electroconvulsive therapy, also known as ECT, is when an electrical current is sent through the brain to relieve mental health problems. Séamus O'Hanlon reports on both sides of this highly controversial issue.
As someone who lives with bipolar disorder, the topic of electric convulsive therapy is a difficult and emotional subject. MPs are now calling for an urgent review into ECT to understand why the discussion has become so polarised and to see if there is any consensus on this sensitive issue.
It just seems to me not offering people that way out of the hell of severe prolonged depression seems to me inhumane, to be honest.
What are your thoughts on the small group of MPs who are currently calling for a ban or a pause on ECT use?
Having read through the article in The Independent, my impression is that they are linked in with the group of people who are trying to get ECT, putting pressure to try and get ECT banned.
I'm not entirely convinced that consent is happening as it should, based on anecdotes that I've read, that patients as well as relatives are being told of the possible long-term harm that it can do. So that's essentially why. I think we are not probably taking into account the very many reports of long-term harm that have come from ECT use.
Of course, there have been problems about how ECT is being presented in the press. There's a very interesting paper, for example, showing about how ECT is being shown in films. And in nearly all cases, it's been shown for the wrong indication and being given in a way that is not how it's given today.
We need to find better evidence for its use and benefits, and also be more open and transparent with end users, really, regarding the procedure.
I think I'm all for safeguards, and I think it's a matter of getting it so there's proportion. I think the new proposals, which are that there should be, if somebody isn't able to give consent and lacks capacity, that there should be a second opinion. I think that's completely reasonable. I think we should be transparent about what we're doing, about what we're giving, and give everybody the right to have their full say.
Hey everyone, I'm Séamus and this is Key's News Round. Coming up on today's show, Elon Musk's new rocket is delayed. The new emergency alert that could save lives all over the country. And what is it like to be a Muslim worker during Ramadan? Not everyone is happy. You might be on TikTok, but if you're under 13, it's actually against the law. And it's believed that about 1.4 million children are breaking that law. So, what are the dangers? Earlier, I spoke to an internet security expert to find out more.
Difficult to answer how much data they're collecting, but what I can tell you, if we are measuring this according to the big data, 5 Vs, the volume of data that organization collects, the velocity of the data is so huge. It is something that even we can't imagine.
For children legally allowed on TikTok, aged 13 and above, how can they protect themselves?
The younger people, do they really understand the concepts of this security? So personally, I believe it starts the responsibility of the parents, and it is the responsibilities of the schools to implement such kind of policies and education to educate these younger people.
You're listening to Keys News, and the time is 5:19. The UK government has released its long-awaited gambling white paper, the biggest reform to the industry for nearly 20 years. It's hoped that it will reduce the possibility of problem gamblers falling into debt and depression. This week I've been getting reaction to the report, first promised back in December 2020.
My biggest win was £5,000, and I could safely say that was the worst thing ever happened to me. Why? Thought I could win 50 grand, thought I could win 100 grand, thought I could win $500,000. I thought I could just change my lifestyle forever just by gambling online, playing poker. Why should I go to work, night shifts, day shifts, coming home stinking, filthy, greasy, 10, 11-hour shift?
That is Andy Margett, one of the 0.2% of adults that the Gambling Commission suggests are problem gamblers in the UK. The 2005 Gambling Act, the most recent government intervention, aimed to protect vulnerable persons from being harmed or exploited by gambling. But Andy started to chase bigger wins in the aftermath of this reform, a period he describes as the Wild West.
My son Joel was born 20th of March 2007 and should have been the happiest time of my life. Everyone's buzzing around, but I was broken and empty inside. There's a photo of me online with my son on my lap. He's 4 days old at the time. Before that photo was taken, I had him on my lap. I was Googling ways to kill myself and I didn't know what to do. About 7 years ago, I decided to tell my story to the world. People started messaging me for inspiration and, this is great. So I started doing more videos, like my recovery and my journey.
Professor David Forrest from the University of Liverpool has been appointed by both the Gambling Commission and the government for advice. He believes the paper will only be successful if recommendations such as affordability checks are fully enforced.
The white paper's taken so long to be published that it's actually only catching up with what the industry is already doing. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, is the industry responsible in terms of the potential problem that comes with high spending on gambling, I would have said no, not at all. In our patterns of play report, we found that even amongst people who lost £2,000 in the year, fewer than 1% of them were telephoned during the year in a social responsibility telephone.
The Gambling Commission responded to my inquiry and said they welcomed the decision to reject blanket, low-level and intrusive affordability checks. Andy does not support a ban on gambling and instead wants there to be gambling awareness for all young people as part of the curriculum.
Within my role as a person going into schools, the worst thing I'd probably say to a kid at 14, 15, 16, don't do this, don't do that. Talk about football betting. We only do it to find out what they already know. They always shout out the same things like yellow cards, shots on target, bet builders. There's like 158 different ways to gamble on one football match now. It's a casino in your pocket end of the day, isn't it?
If you've been affected by anything you've heard, you can find help by going to www.gamcare.org.uk.